It's been 30 minutes since the Aviaco DC-9 departed from Madrid, and the weather is starting to change as they approach their destination in Granada. The grey day is turning into heavy rain, and the meteorological data they receive indicates that they will soon encounter some gusty winds on their approach to the airport. The pilots switch radio frequencies and begin exchanging data with the controller in the area. March 30th, 1992, Madrid Barajas Airport, Spain. It's 6:00 p.m. in Madrid, and here at gate 231, Aviaco airline flight is boarding its final passengers who will depart for Granada in a few minutes. The day is dark, with intermittent rain and gusty winds, causing almost all aircraft to depart with some delay. The aircraft is a DC-9 32 manufactured by McDonnell Douglas. It's a short to medium range twin-engine passenger plane, produced from 1965 to 1982. It later evolved into a family of aircraft, including the McDonnell Douglas MD-80 and the Boeing 707. The project for this aircraft began in April 1963, with the aim of creating a short-range aircraft to complement the long-range quad-engine DC-8. Unlike its main competitor, the B-727, which used parts from its larger sibling, the B-707, the DC-9 was a completely new design. This DC-9, named Castle of Butrón, was 20 years old at the time of this flight. At the controls of Flight 231 is a 40-year-old captain with a total experience of 10,175 flight hours, accompanied by a first officer whose details are unknown and 3 flight attendants. Additionally, there are 94 passengers on board the DC-9. In total, 99 people aboard Flight 231. Despite being a regional journey, there are 23 Japanese citizens on board and several relatively well-known personalities, including 3 sport journalists covering Granada's team information. Finally, at 7:40 p.m., with a 1-hour delay from the initial schedule, Aviaco Flight 231 began its takeoff roll. They lifted off smoothly and set course for Granada. This journey will be very short, lasting only about 50 minutes. It's 8:15 p.m., and the Aviaco DC-9 is now in its approach phase to Granada Airport. The weather conditions have deteriorated significantly. The grey day has turned into a storm with heavy rain and dangerous gusts of wind that are felt inside the aircraft. Flight 231 is approaching runway number 9 with a tailwind of 11 knots. It's not a very strong wind, but enough to destabilize the aircraft every few seconds as they descend. The aircraft is about to fly over the runway threshold, seconds away from touchdown when the wind unexpectedly changes. The tremendous lateral push they experience causes them to ascend a few meters and rotate almost sideways, practically tipping over to one side just as they were about to land. At such a low speed, the aircraft seemed like a puppet being moved at the whim of the gusty wind. The captain doesn't see a possible go-around and responds by leveling the DC-9 as best as he can. Once achieved, he begins to push the controls to descend against the wind's will. The aircraft approaches the runway dangerously. The captain, now pulls the controls to touch down on the ground, doing so very abruptly to counteract their previous movement. Flight 231 goes from descending with a certain degree of inclination to initiating the flare maneuver to try to touch down on the runway with the main landing gear. But the force with which they approach the ground is enormous, and this maneuver, among other things, meant to dissipate this force, only ends up hitting the runway with the tail of the aircraft, and then, almost immediately, with the main landing gear. The impact is so severe that the occupants of the aircraft experience a deceleration close to 5G. The DC-9 bounces against the runway and ascends again. It moves about 350 meters before descending again, this time with both the front and main landing gear touching down simultaneously. Once again, the impact is harsh, subjecting those on board to another deceleration of 4.5 Gray. All the wheels of the landing gear explode, and the aircraft tilts sideways until it promptly splits into two massive pieces. The main part advances along the runway, skimming the ground with its wings and generating a large number of sparks, while the rear part comes to a stop after bouncing a couple of times. Rescue teams approach the two enormous pieces located in the middle of the runway and see passengers starting to exit through the huge hole that has been exposed after splitting in two. Some passengers are unaware of what could happen at any moment. The wings are leaking fuel and an explosion is not out of the question. Miraculously, they manage to evacuate the entire aircraft. There are no fatalities, although some are injured to varying degrees. Fate has dictated that the aircraft does not burst into flames despite the sparks generated by the wings and fuselage rubbing against the runway. And thanks to this, all occupants of Aviaco Flight 231 can recount this incredible event, dubbed by many as the Miracle of Granada. What had happened? Were the pilots at fault for this disastrous landing? The investigation, carried out by the Civil Aviation Accident and Incident Investigation Commission of Spain, concluded that the most probable cause of the accident was the adverse weather conditions present during landing, with strong winds causing wind shear and intense rain. The poor weather likely resulted in the aircraft not having a stabilized approach and touching down with excessive force. Although some reports also mentioned passenger testimony stating that the crew's maneuvers during landing were not usual. Iberia, the airline that owns 65% of Aviaco, also initiated an investigation to determine if the accident occurred due to a tire burst upon contact with the runway, which could have triggered the subsequent sequence of events. Following statements from numerous witnesses, the crew requested voluntary alcohol testing to demonstrate their transparency, but this request was denied. Wind shear can be one of the most dangerous meteorological phenomena for aviation. Between 1964 and 1985, wind shear directly or indirectly caused 26 civil aviation accidents in the United States alone, resulting in 620 fatalities and 200 injuries. Of these accidents, 15 occurred during takeoff, 3 during flight, and 8 during landing. Nowadays, both aircraft and airports are equipped with various sets of anemometers and other technological systems capable of detecting wind shear, such as the LLWAS system or Doppler radars. All these technical aids combined with improved pilot training have contributed to minimizing accidents caused by this factor. The fuselage of the Castle of Butron was removed from Granada Airport and left in a scrapyard until sculptor Eduardo Cajal found it. After purchasing it, he restored it and turned it into a mobile exhibition space, which was presented at the International Contemporary Art Fair of Madrid, ARCO, in 2005 under the name Proyecto Avión. Following its presentation at ARCO, this piece of the aircraft has toured various locations in Spain, transported by truck, including appearances at the Malaga Film Festival in 2007. In 2012, it ventured abroad, being transported by road to Wales for the 2012 Cultural Olympics. It also appeared on the TV show El Hormiguero in 2016. As usual, before signing off, I wanted to express gratitude to all the members of the channel. This week, the new members are Hans de la Torre Roa, Candy, and Mateo Panduro. A big shout out to all of them, and thank you for the support.